Hey guys, Chris here with Cohesive Friendship Unit. You guys did a great job throwing down some awesome comments in the Death Stranding deep dive analysis video of all the trailers, and you kind of inspired some more videos, slash me watching the trailers again, had a few more ideas. There's a lot of blatant, obvious physics references, and I thought we would go through all of the obvious physics things. We're going to talk about what they are in the real world, maybe give an application of the real world and how they would relate to the game. And then I kind of have some corrections from the last video I'm just going to throw out the end. I'll have a timestamp to that at the very bottom or in the description or in the comments somewhere. And yeah, we're going to be discussing chirality, Higgs, specifically Higgs fields and Higgs boson, as well as time dilation in reference to timefalls. And yeah, that's what this video is all about. But real quick, guys, we're really close to 500 subs. We're so close, actually, which is awesome. And any support there would be super appreciated. Smash that MF sub. And if you like the video, please throw us a like. And there's definitely a lot to talk about with this video, so definitely throw down some comments down below, and we'll try to make sense of all this. Hope you're ready for some high school refreshers, because we're about to dive deep. And we're going to start with chirality. So you actually hear chirality for the first time from Fragile, and it's only ever dropped once. Like, she says the word, and that's all we hear about it, but the theme is ever present in the game.
Tears. Chiral allergy. So, you have dooms, like me.
So again, this is something you likely learn about in your high school chemistry class, but when something is chiral, it's not identical to its mirror image. So for common objects like a single hand, not both of your hands, like not your right and your left hand, but just one of your hands is chiral to itself. If you take the mirror image of it and you put it on top of each other, they're not identical. Whereas a symmetric glass or something like a baseball bat would not be chiral, because they are effectively identical on their mirror image. And in terms of physics, a particle can have a chirality based on its spin state, and that's something that we're going to be talking about later with Higgs. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, but it typically refers to a spin state. And kind of a real-world example of chirality is kind of in chemistry. So your molecules can have chirality states. And there was a drug, thalidomide, that was an over-the-counter drug in West Germany to treat morning sickness for pregnant women. And about 5,000 to 7,000 children were born with some pretty horrific birth defects, with about a 40% survival rate. And the culprit was found in one of the enantiomers, which is just one of the chiral states of the molecule. So they had to create a version of the drug where they screen out the enantiomers, or you would have these horrific birth defects. So that's really the most relevant, fun, real-world example. And in the game, Hades could kind of be a chiral universe of sorts. They kind of seem to exist in the same kind of state. They seem to be kind of the same but different. Like they both exist as worlds, but they are definitely different from each other, which is kind of like chirality. They're like the same thing, but they don't quite line up. And that's kind of an idea that I could see working, like a light and a dark world based on chirality. But I think once we dive into Higgs, we will maybe explore a little bit more. So jumping into Higgs, he is a literal character in the game, but he's spelled the same as Higgs, which there are kind of two things that you hear with Higgs. Most people probably know about the Higgs boson because of the real world example I have, which is a physics fact that the Large Hadron Collider was basically made for this type of research, and it tentatively proved the Higgs effect in 2013. So that's the fun physics facts, but most people have heard about the Higgs boson from that discovery. But there's also something called the Higgs field, which is an energy field that uses fundamental particles called Higgs boson particles. And what this Higgs field does is particles that interact with Higgs field are given mass via these Higgs boson particles. So the reason that this has to happen is because adding mass slows velocity, which prevents particles from traveling at the speed of light. So these Higgs boson particles are going to be interacting with the Higgs field, and that's going to prevent them from hitting the speed of light, which is physically impossible. And this is one of the reasons why it's physically impossible, among another that we're going to discuss next. But if you were to take, for say, an electron, and you were to watch it bounce back and forth in like a vacuumed Higgs field, every time you would see it interact with the Higgs field, you would see it change in its chirality, or its kind of spin state. And each time it changes its chiral state, it's going to switch between an electron and an antipositron. So when you observe it, you're never going to know for a fact if you're observing an electron or an antipositron. But the two combined create a physical electron, or an electron with mass. You have the electron with its properties, and then you have the mass that it's given, which is a combination, again, of the electron and the antipositron interacting with the Higgs field. And that is kind of how we're going to attempt to consolidate all of this chirality and all of this Higgs stuff together. So basically, going back to Hades, this could be kind of an electron being like our world and an antipositron being Hades, where you can observe either one of them. The two existing create our universe as a whole, but there are two separate worlds, if you will. And the bridge babies allow you to traverse between the two. How do they do that? Perhaps they do some sort of Higgs field manipulation. And then there's Higgs himself, who seems to have a strong connection with the bridge babies. You see him in the last trailer, opening and closing with bridge babies. And he seems to have a very strong connection with the world in Hades. And he actually might exist in two states himself. I might be reading into this too much, but Higgs has two G's, Cliff has two F's. They both seem to be relatively antagonists. And then there's the scene in the end of the last trailer where Higgs is shown on the screen, but Cliff is actually the one talking.
Oh, it's so hard to form connections when you can't shake hands. Fortunately, I've got a good connection to the other side.
And what this could possibly mean is, very Kojima-like fashion, Higgs can actually exist in two states. He can exist as Higgs or Cliff, depending on how he's observed, or what part of the world he's in, then our world or the Hades world. And the BTs, the beach things, are clearly in some way creatures of the Hades world, or the, if you want to call it, the antipositron world, whatever. But that's kind of the exploration of Higgs and what it is. But now let's talk about this. This one's also the biggest stretch, by the way, but I do want to cover a little bit of time dilation. And again, this one's more out there just because of talk about more out there. The last two things were pretty out there. But I want to talk about the timefalls, because what happens with a timefall is it's effectively a rainstorm. And when the rain touches you, time accelerates for you. And so far it appears to only really truly affect living things, but it's a little ambiguous if it actually impacts like everything, all of matter. But when this timefall comes over the world, the BTs, the beach things, seem to be able to kind of connect themselves with our world. And this is ultimately when a void out occurs, which is an explosion of sorts, which leaves a crater. So I want to talk about time dilation real quick. The closer you approach the speed of light, the slower you go. And this means that if you are going if you're approaching the speed of light at a very fast rate, then your time is actually going to move slower, which means somebody who is not approaching the speed of light. So if Chris the YouTuber is in a spaceship going at the speed of light, then you down on Earth, time's going to move a lot faster for you because I am moving slower because I'm approaching the speed of light. So time is moving slower. And this is kind of out there, but there could be some kind of time dilation occurring with these time falls. And there clearly is. When the raindrop hits Sam's hand, you see that spot of his hand age a little bit. But what's interesting is it's so localized to actual rainfall, which is why it might just be some Kojima magic. But it seems to be like the actual rain that's causing this. So the rain may have some crazy velocity-based effects. Rain might somehow drastically slow the velocity that it touches. And this would leave things that the rain touches moving incredibly slow compared to everything around it, and thus time moving faster relatively, and you aging. And ultimately, all of this pelting rain, if it does affect everything in the world, would eventually accelerate, like erosion and earth patterns and stuff, and just rock change over time. And that could cause the crater, or it could just be all the conflicting energies causing an explosion just from all the connection of the two worlds. Or again, it could just be Kojima supernatural stuff, or some combination of the two. And the best modern example is actually your GPS systems. Every GPS system uses time dilation to determine your position. All the clocks in the satellite use time dilation to determine exactly where you are based on pinging distances between the two. So to tie this all together, Hades could be a chiral universe of sorts, the dark world to our light world, where both exist simultaneously as a whole, and bridge babies act as a Higgs field of sort that allows you to change your chiral state, if you will, and go to Hades and back. Higgs, the character, may have a doppelganger that exists in two states, or he may just have the ability to move and interact between the two worlds at will. And time falls could be the result of time dilation, or again, they could just be Kojima magic, but the time falls are really what seems to not be tying together with this whole dual world thing to me, the actual acceleration of time. And now I just want to move into the corrections portion of the video. Basically, in the last trailer, I wasn't sure what BTs stand for. They do stand for beach things. That was confirmed on the website. I said in the last video that time falls were the actual creatures. I thought when they were the creatures that came out in the rain, and when they touched you, time accelerated. But it turns out the time fall is actually the rain which is falling, and that does cause the acceleration of time. I said the UCA was basically Federation of Bad Guys. I thought they were related to the Homo Demons, and then I rubbed two brain cells together and remembered it is the United Cities of America. There was some ambiguous wording in the newest trailer, so apologies for that. The UCA, that is the United Cities of America. Edge Knot is an independent city of these United Cities of America, and the Homo Demons are the, quote, bad guys, at least in Sam and Fragile's eyes. And the Higgs and Cliff scene, I said that Higgs is saying something as he rises out of the water, talking about the Death Stranding itself, but it appears Cliff is actually the one who is saying something as Higgs rises out of the water, which is part of the reason why I think they might be kind of a dual character type scenario. But that's all from me, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you like the video, please throw us a like. And if you love us, sub us. And please let me know down in the comments if you have any questions. I might be able to help. Or if you have any theories, that would also be great. And that's all from me, guys. Catch you guys next time.